Okay, we admit it. The chance to follow a baseball team into October gets everybody kind of giddy, even watchmakers.
In case you didn't catch it, Major League Baseball said that Ned Yost had to stop wearing his Apple Watch in the dugout.
So Nile, Kansas City's luxury timepiece maker, saw a great opportunity. They crafted a special blue-faced edition for him, and he's been wearing it ever since.
You didn't know there was a Kansas City luxury watchmaker? Well then, let's get you up to speed with his profile from KCPT's Show Me series.
It really started with this hypothesis that we could build a luxury timepiece in America. And that's exactly what we did. It took us about 2.5 years from inception to launching the product. But we've been able to achieve that through what we just call American collaboration. We've worked with companies that don't produce components for timepieces and have taught them how to produce components for timepieces. So the timepiece itself of what we have today is what we now call the Nile 1.3, which is we evolve our product just like we would evolve technology. Since launch, we've changed the bezel shape. We're now upgrading and modifying our own movements. We're doing a lot of great stuff that people have wanted us to have as a capability, and we're integrating it. We're working on the engineering, design, and finishing up for the Nile 2, which is our next product, which will integrate our first caliber movement called Caliber 1810, which will be the first American-based movement from a commercial perspective in a very long time. Nile's all about building wearable reminders of what it means to be all in. You could also say that Nile is about conquering for good. And that's where I think a really great core principle of who we are and something that's in Kansas City is that it's okay to compete. It's okay to want to be successful. It's okay to grow companies and do all those great entrepreneurial things, but you need to do it for good. I really like the culture in Kansas City, and it's really, really tough to beat. And I've been all over the world, and every time I come back to Kansas City, there's something unique about here. You could say it's the humbleness, you could say that it's the focus on culture and family and food and that type of stuff, and I think it's a mix. So for us, really, Kansas City's home because this is where home is to us as people, and as we've built a company, we've interjected a lot of our Kansas City culture and our Kansas City values into our company as a whole, and that's really, I think, people internationally, when they look at us and they say, man, you guys really are different, I think it's the Kansas City in us that they're starting to see. Are there limitations in Kansas City? Absolutely. It's not like Silicon Valley where you've got so much money and so much venture capital that someone with just an idea can go get funded for $1 million. It's a fantasy of all startup entrepreneurs is, oh, we get a lot of this funding and then we have this big exit and everybody makes a lot of money in 5 years. Kansas City's just different, so we don't have that access to, I call it loose capital. Capital that comes with not a whole lot of strings attached, or you don't have to prove much to get it. So while that is a good thing for people in the financial markets, it can often be a bad thing for an entrepreneur trying to build, let's say, a watch company. Timepieces are a risky business. We've been very fortunate to have early investors in the company that have believed and bought into this, but it would be I would say one of the shortcomings is how easy it is to raise money around something that may be a great idea. Kansas City wants you to validate that it's more than just an idea, that it's something that's an actual sustainable business.